Welcome to VLSI design video. We are looking at design and verification with PLDs. So today we will be looking at design and verification with PLDs lecture 5. I hope you might have watched all the 4 lectures of this particular unit. So the objective of this unit is to make you understand the testability methods. So before starting with what are the testability methods, first we will see the importance of testing. As a designer, you design so many things, and once you design and you feel that your design is perfect and correct, you will be giving it to the market for sale. But the testing also plays an important role. Let's see what is that. According to Moore's law, feature size is increasing. Feature size, as it increases, the number of components incorporated into the device also will increase. So that means the size of the IC remains the same, but the number of things which are integrated into it will be increasing. So as the number of elements or the things which are integrated into the device are increases, no doubt there will be some of the errors that can come up, and those errors are called as defects, and these defects are unavoidable. Sometimes we cannot avoid, sometimes the defects can be avoided, but sometimes these defects are unavoidable. So testing is required to guarantee that whatever the chip we are going to fabricate should be fault free. So in order to ensure that the chip what we are manufacturing or making out as a product should be fault free, we should consider some of the quality parameters. So product quality depends on some of the parameters. They are test cost, test quality, and test time. So we need to test these chips before producing in the market, so that at the base level itself we can avoid these defects or faults, and to ensure that our chip should be fault free. So while testing, we need to see the time of the testing, quality of the testing, and the cost of the testing, and these 3 should be as minimum as possible. So DFT is nothing but the fault testing. It is like a game changer. So if this design for testability changes, then the game, the chip what you are manufacturing also will change. If this design for testability what you are doing is degrading, then no doubt your chip also will degrade. So it's like the design for testability, DFT in short we call it as, it is also a game changer. So what is testability? The ability to put a design into a known initial state and then control and observe internal signal values is what is called as testability. Ability to put a design, what we have designed earlier or what we have already done, into a known state, that I know that these things are to be coming out, and then you are controlling the inputs and you are observing the output, what you have known with the values, that is called as testability. So circuit without design flip-flops or design for testability elements is circuit is controllable and observable, but circuit with the DFF is low testability. So 2 basic properties determine the testability of a node. They are called as controllability and observability. Controllability, in short I can say, the ability to set node to a specific value, whereas the observability is the ability to observe a node's value, is what we call as observability. So what is DFT? DFT refers to hardware design styles, what hardware we design, or added hardware that reduces test generation complexity. Getting with me? DFT refers to hardware design styles or added hardware that reduces test generation complexity. The philosophy of DFT is Murphy's law, which states whatever can go wrong will also go wrong. You think whatever can go wrong, that means no doubt they will go wrong. So the motivation is test generation complexity increases exponentially with the size of the circuit. What do you mean by again test generation, ma'am? What are you speaking about? So the test generation is nothing but the testing scenario. If I want to test, suppose a hardware what I have, I should give to that hardware some supply input. So what are the inputs that you are going to give? You can give some analog input, you can give some digital input, not any input. You cannot give any input to it, isn't it? Based on the hardware and based on the hardware what it is meant for, accordingly you produce even the analog with predefined value. If at all digital input, digital also with predefined data. So that data, fixed data, what you are trying to generate, so that the test internally will generate and give it to the hardware, is what is called as test generation. So this test generation complexity increases exponentially with the size of the circuit. Basically, design for testability enables the manufacturing test. It is a structural technique which facilitates a design to become testable after production. So then again, to increase the productivity, we need design for testability, to make shorter time to market, to reduce the design cycle, and to reduce the cost. For getting the reduced cost, for getting the reduced design cycle, and for the product to make available in no time to market or lesser time to market. In short, all these things together we call it as to increase the productivity. We need design for testability. As well, the other criteria is to improve the quality. What do you mean by improving the quality? That means the defect should be less, or in short I call it as reduced defects per million, that we call it as DPM. If the number of defects which can occur inside a chip what you are manufacturing are very less, that means we say the quality of the chip is good. And improved quality of test, whenever you test it, the quality of that testing is also, if it is good, then we say yes, obviously my chip is also very good. So in short, to improve the quality, again we need design for testability. So what is DFT technique again? Design for testability technique. It is two techniques. One is ad hoc technique and one is structural technique. Ad hoc techniques, let us see first. As name implies, ad hoc technique is a temporary technique. It is a strategy to enhance the design testability without making much change to design style. We are not going to change much for the design what we have done, but to enhance the testability or to increase the scope of the testability without making any change in the design style is what is called as temporary or ad hoc testing or ad hoc technique. Good design practices learned through experience are used as guidelines. What all practices we have done while testing, so that good practices through the experience what we have learned, if we apply to them or we take them as guidelines, is what is called as ad hoc DFT. Whereas next is the structural technique. Here it provides more systematic and automatic approach to enhance the design testability. More systematic and automatic approach. So the targets are manufacturing defects. While manufacturing there can come up some defects. So these are called as structural defects. Like see, you can see here in the diagram, the structure we have AND structure, but while manufacturing somebody can like fix some resistor. So such techniques, such defects can be clearly done with the help of DFT technique, looking into the system more systematically, and with the automatic test patterns we clearly look into this and systematically, step by step, node by node and input by input, we try to trace out and look into it is what is called as structural technique. So what are the manufacturing defects? There can be some physical problems in silicon. Actually, basic material what we use for manufacturing the chip is a silicon material. So there happens that some physical problems in silicon might occur. They are like extra metal causing shorts. You can see here one line with the other, if they are short, they are called extra shorting, extra metal which can cause short. And insufficient doping. The doping is one more parameter for semiconductor materials. So it can happen that insufficient doping and contamination causing opens. In place of short, it can happen that it can be open also. And CMOS stuck on or CMOS stuck open. Stuck on is stuck short. Lines are sticking to only one particular logic is called as stuck at faults or stuck at. So CMOS, in CMOS circuits, it can happen that they can stuck to one particular thing. They are called as stuck open and stuck short. That also can happen in the manufacturing faults. And slow transistors. If the transistors are slow, then that also will result in manufacturing defects. But what is a defect? The term defect generally refers to a physical imperfection in the processed wafer. Physical imperfection in the processed wafer is what is called as defect. Some defects are observable through the optical or electron microscope. Others are not visible and can only be detected by electrical tests. Next is a fault. The definition of fault is a representation of a defect. If you are trying to represent that particular defect at the functional level is what is called as a fault. Next definition is error. A wrong output signal produced by a defective system is what is called as an error. If it is not a defective system, it won't produce any wrong output, right? Isn't it? Then we don't call it even as an error. But if the system is defective, obviously it will produce a wrong output, and that will be indicated as an error. What is a failure? Repeated occurrence of the same defect indicates the need for improvement in the manufacturing process or the design of the device, and such types are called as failures. So procedures for diagnosing defects and finding their causes are known as failure model analysis, or in short it is called as FMA. Next, what is fault modeling? Due to the defect during manufacturing of IC, there is a need to model the possible faults that might occur during fabrication process. This is called as fault modeling. They are called as stuck at fault and transition fault. Stuck at fault are generally called as a single stuck at fault model. It is the most popular fault model in practice, and due to some process variation, imperfection during photolithography and etching the metal is considered. So this you can see a AND gate. We have two inputs and one output. Suppose at this line A, if it is generally how do we test? We pass A 0, B 0, and we observe what is output coming out to be. So what we are passing at the inputs are called controlling inputs, and what we are trying to look at the output, what we know is what is called as observing. So that's why I told you initially the terms called as controllability and observability. So here we want to pass continuously some different inputs and we want to observe, but generally if it is defect and if it is having some fault, so this will stuck to some logic. Instead of continuously taking 0 or 1 or whatever I want to pass, if it is not taking and constantly it is taking as 1, this line, it is, even though I keep on changing the input line, but it is trying to take only logic 1, that means it is stuck at 1. Getting with me? So the cross 1 indicates that we are trying to model it as stuck at fault or fault. Stucking or sticking at particular logic value is what is called as stuck at fault. So this stuck at fault example you can see. First what we do is we will activate the fault and we will try to propagate this fault, and then we will justify whether that line is faulty or faultless. That propagation is called a sensitization or a propagation path. So you can see here we are trying to trace, we are trying to look at this as a stuck at 0. That means always this will be 0 even though you pass any of the inputs. So if it is 0, no doubt the output of this AND gate will be 0, isn't it? Getting with me? So this F will be always 0. If this F is always 0, whatever will come out here only will be passed. Okay, that means this line is now dummy or it is always 0. What is the property of OR gate? It will pass the high line. If this is high, it will be passed. If this is low, this will be low because it is already low here. So now we as this will be passing the C, whatever is given, so we don't want to look at the propagation path, this one, but we are more considered about E, F, G and H, because we need to see, we are trying to say that this point is stuck at 0. If this is stuck at 0 fault, then no doubt AND gate should be always 0. But if it is not stuck at 0, no doubt that means F will not be always not 0. So if F is not always 0, G also will be changing. If G is changing, then my H also will be changing. So the sensitization by B equals 1, if I make it 1, we are assuming that it is stuck at 0 at this point. But if I make B as 1, and if this is 1, my A should be passed here. What is the property of AND gate? 1 into A will be A, isn't it? So if this 1, that means A should come out. If A is coming up, A ORing with J will be coming out as G, and then it will be NANDed to come out as H. But if F is not coming out to be A into 1 or A, it is giving 0, then we say that it is stuck at 0. But this F is coming out to be A, then we say that it is not stuck at 0. Okay, this is how we consider the false, stuck at false, and we test and see whether the circuit is triggering with the false, and circuit is also trying to circuit is always working with the false or not. So for that we use some algorithms that we call it as D algorithm. In the D algorithm we target a specific stuck at fault, like what we have targeted here. We have just targeted at this point, at stuck at 0, SA0 is stuck at 0. So we target a specific stuck at fault and drive the fault side to opposite value. What is opposite value? 1, isn't it? We are targeting through stuck at 0 and the opposite value is 1. For stuck at 0 is we are driving to 1. Okay, so drive fault to opposite value, then propagate that error through that primary inputs to the output and generate patterns for one stuck at fault at a time, and involve decision making at almost every step. So now decision making will be ours. So we can involve the decision making at every step by considering each and fault at every time. Next is the transition fault model. The transition fault is similar to the stuck at fault in many respects. The effect of transition fault at any point P in a circuit is that a rising or falling transition at P will not reach an observable output such as a scan flip-flop or primary output within the desired time. So you can see here AND gate, again the same example. If the input signal changes like this, you can see is A is 0, so C is also 0, but A is nothing, but still C is coming out. Now here you can see A is from 0 to 1 there is a transition what we can see, and C is 0 and later it is coming out, that is a faulty circuit. Immediately as on when if the changes, then we say it is fault free. But the transition is coming out to be later or slower, then we say that it is a faulty circuit. Methods to test transition fault are: delay tests require a vector pair to detect a fault. We make the delays. Since the patterns must be applied at the rated speed, at speed testing is needed. For full scan circuits, both the vectors in the scan flip-flops must be ready for consecutive time frames to ensure at speed testing. Several different methods are used to apply the vectors at speed. Transition faults are detected through scan chain. There are two methods to detect transition faults. They are skew load or launch from shift, or skew load or launch from shift. And there is a structured approach also. This approach is organized by the systematic with far more inevitable results. Scan style is the most widely used structured DFT methodology. It tries to boost testability of a circuit by raising the controllability and observability of storage elements in an exceedingly sequential style. Typically, this is often accomplished by converting the sequential design into a scan design with three modes of operation. They are normal mode, shift mode and scan mode. So I hope you might have understood the introduction to testability. Thank you for watching.